Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam and Life with me, Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, how can Muslims break the vicious circle of divide and conquer?
Recently, Iran's Majlis Speaker Ali Larijani said that governments and organisations are inciting religious rifts in the Muslim world and that it is a colonialist scheme aimed at ensuring the safety of the Zionist regime of Israel. Many analysts say that Muslim-majority countries are subjected to a Western Islamophobic media spewing sectarian propaganda. Meanwhile, Israel argues the need for military protection, funding and political support, and she gets it. Today's Islam and Life asks, how can Muslims break the vicious cycle of divide and conquer?
The Muslims are facing very difficult challenges when it comes to divisions within. We know the divisions that we are facing between Shia and Sunni, and also things that have to do with political divisions and sometimes nationalistic divisions. And this is where the Muslims understanding the religion, the very meaning of unity, the very meaning also of accepted diversity, it's essential from an Islamic viewpoint, and especially when we know that some are playing and are nurturing the divisions. The divide and rule, divide and conquer is exactly what is happening now in the Middle East. So it's very important for us to know the principles as Muslims that unite us, but also to understand that there are strategies and there is something that is life when it comes to different opinions. So how do we manage, how do we deal with different opinions, and how we also avoid being naive about people trying to divide the Muslims when it comes to the unity of their faith, the unity of the community of faith, and also understanding the challenges of our time. These are critical questions, and to answer all these questions, I am joined by my guest, journalist and Middle East analyst, Hafsa Qara Mustafa. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are talking about a very critical topic today, because if we look at what is happening in the Middle East, not only in the Middle East, by the way, everywhere, we can see what is happening in Asia, and we can even see what is happening in Western countries where we have Muslims within who are divided, and they cannot just come to an agreement on simple issues and sometimes complex geographical, geostrategic and political issues. So the starting point, if this understanding of unity, how unity is important from a Muslim viewpoint, and how this unity is challenged, for example, in the Middle East. So you are an analyst, you are looking and trying to understand what is happening in the Middle East. How would you tackle the issue?
Well, first of all, I think we need to explain to fellow Muslims that really there is a basic understanding, which is if you believe in Allah, you read the Quran and you pray towards Mecca, that really ultimately makes you a Muslim. And I think that really is what anyone defining themselves as Muslim should believe and should accept. Now, when we go into the details about whether we scratch our head or our forehead with the right hand, or we pray with our hands down or on the side, then we get into sort of detail that is irrelevant to the overall identity that represents being a Muslim. And I think it's just having major scholars, people, high profile Muslims, simply repeating the basics of what it constitutes to be a Muslim, which is these three basic tenets. I think once we've understood that, then we can move forward.
Yes, I agree with you, and I think that this is very important to come to the sources and to understand that first, we all believe in one God, which is the meaning of Tawheed, and the last messenger, peace be upon him, was the last messenger. So this is the very understanding of our testimony, that what it means, a shahada, what it means to be a Muslim. And then what you were saying is the principles are the same. Whatever is our traditions, if we are Sunni and Shia, or if we are following a specific trend, or a current, or a school of law, or current of thoughts, still these are the main principles. So if we come to this, we understand that our religious community, what we call the Ummah, is based on these principles that we are sharing. So we are all Muslims. Now, is this enough? Because in fact, when it comes to unity, if we come to this, these are the principles. What we see on the ground today is that even if the people are calling themselves, you are my brother, you are my sister in Islam and in humanity, still we have problems. So how can we build a deep understanding that these are principles that are uniting us, but at the same time, our unity should go beyond only the principles by understanding the way there is a diversity of thoughts within the Muslim communities around the world.
We have to accept that throughout the Muslim world you'll have various tendencies, various practices, rituals that differ from one side to another. And I think this goes back to the critical thought which we've lost over the centuries. There's become a sort of overbearing dogma which stops everyone from thinking. There is this word that keeps propping up again, which is a heinous word, which is kafir, kufar, and everyone seems to declare that whoever doesn't fit into that definition that one school has accepted is straying, has become a kafir. So we have to sort of reject that.
Disbeliever or someone who is rejecting the truth. Yeah.
And so we have to reject that idea. We have to accept that there is diversity.
I agree with you that scholars have a great responsibility here. While we have some scholars from the beginning, we have a very, very old tradition of scholars. For example, we have, great scholars in the past, Ja'far Sadiq, who was in fact a scholar for the two traditions, Sunni and Shia. And we have scholars accepting diversity, and up to today we still have scholars that are saying and repeating that there is a diversity. I think that this is critical. Some are not. We also have among scholars, dogmatic minds. We have, all this question of ego, thinking that I'm speaking on God's name, and this is something which is critical. The very deep Islamic tradition is based on this diversity of thought and making us understand that unity is not uniformity. Unity is managing this diversity. And what you are saying, which is very important, diversity means that not on the essential, not on the principles, we all agree on that, but on secondary issues, there are many interpretations and we have to accept that. Within our tradition, if you are Sunni and Shia, and between the two traditions, the two main Islamic traditions, that there are differences. Now, it's true that scholars have to be more explicit on that. Now, we also have a problem with Muslims themselves, because we can't blame the scholars. The problem is also with the community, with what we call the followers, because sometimes if you are not with me, it means that you are not even a Muslim, as you were saying, kafir. Putting people, takfir is putting people outside Islam. And today, with what is happening in the Middle East and our different interpretations, we can see people being very tough on such issues and being able to put people outside Islam. So how do we have to deal with the ordinary average Muslims when it comes to this issue?
Well, I think it would be calling on fellow Muslims to actually learn more about religion, because at the end of the day we've seen that many sort of claim to know the basic tenets, but actually deep down you scratch the surface and they will come out with things that are absolutely ridiculous, which are completely alien to the basic tenets that we grew up with. So I think it is the onus, yes, it is on the scholars who are our teachers, who are our elders and who have devoted a lot of time and energy in learning about Islam, but of course individually, and I mean this is a very important thing within the community. It's something that Muslims have always taken pride in, which is saying that we don't actually have a clergy. It's the exercise of faith is between ourselves and God, and therefore at the end of the day no one has a right to excommunicate you from religion, etc. So really the responsibility for fellow Muslims individually is to learn more about religion and more also about the history of Islam. I mean, just to go back to an example of the Sunni-Shia divide, something that I find very striking, with the rise of anti-Shia sentiment across the Muslim world, and in particular in a country like Pakistan, for instance, what is quite funny is that the founder of Pakistan was a Shia himself. And so you have fellow Pakistanis, nationalist Pakistanis, who are actually attacking Shias, not knowing that the founding father of their nation was himself a Shia. So this idea, I think people need to educate more themselves and actually just realize and come back to the basics of what is history and what is Islam.
Yes, I think that dealing with diversity means more knowledge. It's very often that we have simplistic mind thinking this is the only way to be a Muslim is my way of understanding. So knowledge is important. So more knowledge as to the average Muslims, more courage as to the scholars, or at least teaching more about this diversity. Now, we are here talking about, diversity from within the religious understanding, and this is something which is important. But what we can see is that what is happening on the ground is something which is deeper than that, where people sometimes are confusing between religious belonging and political views. And sometimes people, in the name of our interpretation, our understanding of what is happening on the ground, for example, in political terms, are putting people within or outside Islam. So what should be the discourse? What could we say here to help the people to say, look, I'm a Muslim and I'm as Muslims as you are, even though I don't share your political understanding or your political interpretation of things. For example, in the Middle East now, we know how, Malik Ben Abi was saying once, we have been colonized because we were colonizable. In fact, we are being divided because we are dividable.
Absolutely.
So how can we deal with a kind of the strength of unity based on this diversity in political terms?
That's a very difficult question, I think.
It is, yeah, I know.
And it is difficult because obviously the two go hand in hand. The history of the Middle East, the Arab world, although obviously we have old Christian communities, the Copts in Egypt, the Maronites in Lebanon, you still have the defining characteristic of the Arab world. I mean, the Arab world as we know it was defined by Islam, by the Muslim conquest. So the two are linked. And it's very strange. If you see certain nations, they were built on their Islamic identity. So how can you distinguish the two? And you have clashes. For instance, if you take a country, say Algeria, for instance, you have Morocco, which is an old monarchy, it was established, and then you had Egypt, the great big player, and then you had Algeria, which is various tribes, and what brought them together, what linked them, and what forged the state of Algeria was its Islamic identity. So today you take it, it's adopted a sort of modern kind of neoliberal socialist mix, but the Islamic element is very much part and parcel of it. So how can you, and there lies the problem, because on the one hand you have the underlying current within the population that is deeply ingrained, that is deeply attached to the Islamic identity, but where there are forces which believe that in order to emancipate yourself, to develop your country, you need to distinguish yourself from that identity that forged you in the first place. And this is where you have clashes. It's a very problematic issue today because most of the Arab nations were built through their Islamic identities. How do we take this forward and how do we resolve it? I think we need to become very confident in who we are and actually accept that Islam is part of our fabric, it's part of our identity, in the same way that Western nations were built on Christian beliefs and Christian values. And this is the problem. I think we're having a problem accepting what are the values. And the word Islam, we've almost absorbed a sort of Islamophobic discourse that means that somehow Islam is incompatible with democracy, with elections and all those things. It's not. It's part of who we are, it's part of how we've evolved, and it's that's how we're going to take things forward.
How can you get this, what you are saying, this discourse understood by Muslims? While if you look at what is happening now in the Middle East, we have multi-dimensional divisions, in fact. When it comes to within the tradition, between the Sunni and, you have reformists, you have literalists, you have traditionalists within the Sunni, and it's same in the Shia tradition. So we have division within. Now we have between the Sunni and the Shia. And now if you look after what happened, the uprisings in the Muslim majority countries in the Middle East, what we can see is this polarization between Islamists, so to speak, and secularists, so to speak, saying, no, religion, it's a private matter. In fact, more even secularists than what we have in the West. Sometimes it's even, if you look at the discussion in Tunisia, what happened in, so we have multiple layers where we have divisions. And what you are saying is to be confident about that. So how are we going to start? Because this is where exactly the problem lies today when it comes to which type of unity do we want. Add to this another way of dealing with the Middle East is all what we heard over the last 3 years, for example, was very nationalistic. The Tunisians talking about Tunisia, the Algerians about Algeria, the Egyptians about Egypt. So we are talking about Arab, we are talking about the Middle East, and at the end we have divisions between the nations, division within religion, division within the society. How are we going to deal with that?
Well, first we have to accept that the nation states are a reality and we can't go back. Today, the fact that there is a Moroccan, an Egyptian, a Syrian, these are identities that have now exist, and they have spawned specific identities. It sounds silly to a certain extent because, you know, once upon a time the lines were blurred, and who could distinguish between a guy from the Libyan border and an Egyptian?
But is it not dangerous when you have, for example, in Egypt, people who are able to say, we don't care about what is happening in Gaza, we don't care about the Palestinians, they are destroying the Egyptian unity. When you end up having this kind of discourse, is it not helping the Zionists and what is coming from within the reality of the Palestinian resistance?
Oh, but that goes without saying. I think the division today in the Middle East is a godsend for Israel. And in fact, it's without wanting to sort of start with the conspiracy theories, Oded Yanon, who's a famous Israeli journalist working for the Ministry of the Foreign Ministry in Israel, wrote famously in 1982 the plan for the Middle East, where he spoke, and I quote, "the need for the Balkanization of the Middle East." And he first spoke of breaking up Iraq and then moving on to Syria. Why? Because these were powerful regional powerhouses, and obviously the diversity within these societies meant that the Balkanization would be made easier. Once that happens, then Israel can go ahead and do what it wants. So yes, but what I'm saying is that we have to accept that the nation states exist, and then with that reality, move on to inculcate, to make sure that people within these countries are sufficiently confident to accept who they are, what their identity is, and how to take the message forward and how to improve. But I think the reality of the nation state is not going away, and I think we have to deal with it.
So if we look at the challenges ahead, what you are saying, to be confident. Now, if we have to push this agenda, saying, okay, the first understanding is for the scholars to speak out, for the average Muslims to get more knowledge, and then to be confident. What are the steps? What are the first steps that we have to promote in order to achieve this?
Well, I suspect it would be bring back stability in the region, because obviously confusion is the devil's best friend.
Yeah.
What is happening today, all this mess, will allow these problems to fester and continue. So the urgency now is to bring back stability, appease the overall tensions, and bring all these tensions down. Once that happens, then we can sort of on a clean slate and start the education program. But I think the urgency today is to stop the sectarianism, stop the regional tensions.
In the recent past, there was stability under dictatorships and nothing moved. Now we have no stability and still dictatorships. How can we deal now with this? Because at the end, even the Islamic discourse, even the discourse coming from the intellectuals, even the civil society, if we can speak about civil societies in the Middle East now, are polarized, and we are nurturing our own divisions. So we are in fact in the Middle East producing our own instability within the society. So how are we going to get out of this vicious circle?
Well, for one thing, we need to learn the past lessons, and I think that's vital, obviously. So we need to learn that first, the ongoing dictatorships are not good. We need to teach our leaderships that, hey, once you've passed 10 years or 15 years or whatever, you need to move on. These are the basics. So that's a reality. Then, obviously, you need to come back and accept the identity and the specific fabric of your country. I'm saying this because, obviously, the problem we've had in the past 30 years is that we haven't really known where we stand. So on the one hand, we're attracted by sort of Western methods of governance, which are not suited to who we are. And then
who is this the we you are talking about?
Most Arab nations, most Arab countries, from Egypt to Algeria to Tunisia to Syria. So we've absorbed, and what we've had is actually we've sort of absorbed something that is neither a straightforward basic system that works. It's neither Arabic nor Western. And it seems as if we've almost absorbed the worst of both worlds. Rather than actually absorbing the best of both worlds, the result has been something completely wrong, and with the result that we see today, which is dictatorships, ongoing dictatorships, and then the removal of dictatorships, unlike in Eastern Europe or South America, where there was a smooth transition, but it has become brutal, and it's led to the wars that we see today. So I think it's very important, again, we're coming back to the importance of knowledge, but to learn past history, to learn from past mistakes. And I think that is something that we keep seeing again and again, especially from Arab leaderships, that there is absolutely no lessons in history. And it's absolutely striking that again and again, you're seeing the same leaders or their children or the second generation making the same mistakes. And obviously you make the same things, you will get the same results.
Yes. One last point very quickly. What is the role of Western Muslims in the whole discussion? Do they have a role to play?
I think Western Muslims need to concentrate on being Western. It's their role in the West. And I think one of the things, without wanting to reject them from what is happening in the Muslim world, but I think the Muslim world needs to stand up and stop relying on the West or on foreign help, influence, support. Western Muslims today are Western. They are English, British, they are French, they are German, that's who they are. Maybe they have strong links to their home countries, but they are Western. So the role of the Muslim world should be in the hands of Muslims in the Muslim world.
Thank you so much. Trying to summarize what you are saying, I think that the starting point that you make, and it's quite a powerful point, is to come back to the scholars and to tell them there will be no unity within the Muslim communities or societies if you don't speak out, and make it clear that there is an accepted diversity in Islam, and to remind the people of the common principles. Having said that, what you said also is for the Muslims and the average Muslims, the ordinary Muslims, there will be no unity if you don't get more knowledge. It's not only your viewpoint that is right, that there are many, many opinions, many interpretations, and we need to get this knowledge. Having said that, the thing that you are adding to this, which is also very important, is in the process is to get a better understanding of the challenges that the societies are dealing with, and with knowledge, getting more knowledge of history, just not repeat the same mistakes, and to go beyond that. These are very important points. That's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows we have seen, and here is the way to contact us.
We at Islam in Life would like to hear your views about the subjects that we discuss. We would also love to hear your suggestions for our program, so get in touch with us. You can share your thoughts with other Islam in Life fans, engage in debate, and find out how to watch our previous shows. Follow us on Twitter at Islam in Life TV, or join us on Facebook by liking our page, Islam and Life on Press TV.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Hafsa Qara Mustafa. Thank you for your input, and I hope to see you next week, inshallah.